Hello, this is Dr. Drew Leader, double doctor, MD, PhD, from Loyola University, Maryland. And I'm here to talk about some lessons on healing in the face of illness and aging and disability and injury. These are drawn from my new book, The Healing Body, Creative Responses to Illness, Aging, and Affliction. And in it, I talk about the extreme disruptions, existential disruptions that come about when our body breaks down, disruptions in relation to other people, kind of experiencing space and time and our world, experiencing even our own body, which we'll talk about a lot in today's video. And even just kind of our experience of meaning, purpose, identity, how the universe works. All of this can be thrown into question when we're dealing with serious illness. So I lay out what I call a chessboard of healing strategies. On my website, there's a kind of interactive version you can play to see what is your current strategy. And especially if you feel like your illness holds you in check, and you need some new moves, you can play and plot them out on this interactive web feature. But in this chessboard of healing strategies, I'm trying to delineate 20 different ways. It's a 5x4 matrix, different moves you can make, different possibility spaces in how to respond to illness in a healing fashion. I'm not saying that I will always bring about medical cure, but here I'm using the term healing from the same root as whole, W-H-O-L-E, or holy. How do we reintegrate an existence that's been massively upended and disrupted by a bodily breakdown? So today we're talking about the strategy I call befriending, befriending your body. And what I mean for that is that sometimes when we fall ill or have an injury, etc., we go in the opposite direction. We kind of descend into self-hate of some form. Like, why did I do this to myself? Why was I so careless as to bring about that accident? Or why didn't I take better care of myself physically? I brought this illness upon myself. And in fact, the very word pain is from the Latin root poena, which means punishment. So there's often an experience that the pain I'm suffering or the limitation or disfigurement is a kind of punishment from the universe, from God, from the causal processes of science, for something we've brought on ourselves. And when you're in that kind of guilty, self-blaming state, it's not very conducive to recovery. We don't take good care of ourselves. Our hormonal system, our immune system is not operating optimally. And we often feel like we're really not deserving of getting better. Therefore, we don't expect to get better, and we don't do the things we need to do to get better. Conversely, befriending our body, giving love to our body, which is injured, in pain, and giving love to ourselves, because in many ways we are the expressions of our body. Research shows that people who have that self-compassionate attitude make better use of a whole variety of adaptive coping strategies for chronic illness and do better than those who are preoccupied with self-blame. Not a shocker. Let me pull out a quote from a famous medical sociologist, Arthur Frank, who unfortunately had both a serious heart attack and testicular cancer. But he writes of the moment when he reclaims his body from the status of object or the status of opponent, enemy, which can actually be fostered not only by the illness, but also its medicalization. The doctor says, we're going to fight this thing, we're going to pull out the full medical armamentarium, and also our body is treated in a somewhat dehumanized, depersonalized fashion within the biomedical system. Um, so in this ways, our contact with medicine is crucial, but not always existentially healing. But back to Arthur Frank's quote, that day I stopped resenting it for the pain I had felt and began to appreciate my body. In some ways, for the first time in my life, I stopped evaluating my body and I began to draw strength from it. And I recognized this body was me. So this kind of changes the vibe when we're dealing with illness, if we can access that sense of compassionate befriending of our body. Being in that kind of loving space betters our mood. Our physical condition may relatively improve because we find that our body, as if it were a child or an animal, uh, it likes being attended to and cared for, even if language is not always the optimal medium with a child or with an animal. Similarly, we may need to hold our body, we may need to stroke it, we may need to put on a compression bandage that makes it feel held. We may need to take a hot bath. We may need to listen. In a previous video, I talked about listening as a strategy, listening carefully to what it's trying to tell us, if it's aching or it's getting fatigued, to care for it, to get enough rest, to give it good nutrition, etc. So this may be often taken for granted or overlooked, but it's actually can be one of those things that is a challenge. And we really need to work on as we're working with the injured or the ill or the aging body. So once again, very brief summary of one of the 20 teachings that are laid out in much greater detail in that new book I mentioned, The Healing Body, Drew Leader, LADER, Northwestern University Press, Creative Responses to Illness, Aging, and Affliction. Thank you very much for watching today.